The SEC is changing their schedule. Not everyone is pleased by it, but some people aren't pleased and yet also in favor of it. So we've told you that this has been a long time coming. The SEC is adding OU in Texas, so of course they're going to 16 teams. They are going to, it's all but a certainty that they're going to add a ninth conference game, which means they're going to go with a 3-6-6 format. And I'm pretty sure most of you understand what that means, but if you don't, it's very simple. That means you have three, the first number. That means the teams you play every year. 3 fixed opponents. That's the most important number to pay attention to. And then the 6 and 6 just means the other teams in the conference you play one year, and the teams you don't play that year, you'll play them the next year. That also means that you play every team in the conference over a 2-year period, and you play in every venue in the conference over any given 4-year period. It's a good thing for entertainment, right? For you and I, that's a good thing. For coaches, is it a good thing? For players, is it a good thing? I would argue also what's good for us is good for them. This schedule is going to be a total knife fight every year. I'm going to come back to that in just a second. But Ross Dellinger has been on top of this, as he usually is. We probably need to work something into our vernacular to describe when Ross drops a story. I'm going to throw Ross bomb out there. If you don't like it, you can throw it right back and we'll come up with something else. But Ross has been on top of this. And he reported the other day essentially what the 3 fixed opponents will be. I know it was a projection from him. That guy's got a pretty informed ability to project these things. Let me leave it at that. LSU, Auburn, and Tennessee. Those were the 3 fixed opponents that Mr. Dellinger said you can expect Alabama to have. Nick Saban apparently buys it, because not only was Nick Saban quoted in the story, but Nick Saban also came out and said, they've got us playing Hoopst. They got us playing Auburn, LSU, and Tennessee. How in the world do they come to that? Now, you may be thinking to yourself, Nick Saban sounds scared all of a sudden. No, I've got some sound for you in a couple of minutes I'm going to play. I went to the source. I went to Nick Saban and asked him to his face, and we'll play that video in a second. But the way the league is doing this on the surface makes sense. So you can't knock the process in theory. The league looked around like anyone would do. If you were the commissioner and you had someone in charge of fixing a schedule, you would say, okay, we can't do like certain people do in ping pong tournaments in this office and just randomly select teams, because that is what fools do. So we can't do that. So we have to evenly distribute the challenge of the 3 fixed opponents. So we can't have someone playing Georgia and Alabama and Oklahoma every year. That would be unfair, right? So they decided to go over the past 10 years and look at winning percentage. And then you got teams in the top half of the league and teams in the bottom half of the league. Sounds good, right? Carries a lot of weight. Here's the problem. That model thinks that Tennessee sucks. That model looks at Tennessee's winning percentage over the past 10 seasons. It's 41.4. Tennessee's not even a top 10 team in the SEC, which is woof, gross. Tennessee's not even in the top 10. Both of the Mississippi schools and Missouri are ahead of Tennessee. So the SEC's nameless, faceless model is looking and saying, hey, give Bama Tennessee. And Bama was always going to have Tennessee because it's a big rival. But the point is, the model is saying, listen, Bama's got Tennessee, so it won't matter if they have to play LSU and Auburn every year. It'll be fine. Everything's fine. And Nick Saban is going, it's not fine. Did you see us go up there last year? It's not fine at all. That is Nick Saban's beef. Now, I don't think a lot of folks outside the SEC have followed this like some of us that live down here have. I've followed this thing for years because it's been a sticking point. Pac-12 fans know this. You guys have looked at the SEC for a long time, and you've said, how in the world are you scheduling Catawba Community College? How is Auburn playing Roast Beef Tech on the second to last week of the year? How do they have FCS Cream Puff City in November? You guys should be playing 9 conference games. And some of us have advocated for that. But I just talk into a microphone. I went to the top dog in the conference back in July, and I sat down in front of Nick Saban, and I said, hey, a lot of folks love watching your team, but people don't love watching you body bag some FCS no-name. And here's what Nick Saban had to say. I think a lot of folks love watching Alabama football. People don't get so stoked when they wake up on a Saturday morning and know Bama's favored by 48 today. And I've heard you talk a little bit lately about how you don't prefer that either. You want games that people want to see, but you can't just snap your fingers and make it happen. So,
right. To play quality games is the most important thing. All right, but our rules don't enhance us playing quality games. How about the fans? Do they want to go see these games? So, you know, it was, I don't know how many years ago, 6, 8 years ago, I said, why don't we play 9 games in the SEC? All right, now they're talking about playing 9 in the future. I'm saying, why don't we play 10? All right, we had one season, all right, which was a great competitive season. We didn't play one game that everybody wasn't interested in. So, would you lose more games if you played that? Probably. But there would be a lot more interest, all right, which I think is the most important thing. The stadium being filled. The passion and the spirit of the fans makes college football what it is.
Not to divert everyone's attention, but Jesse, are you looking at the live chat? Someone in here just said Roast Beef Tech has an NIL deal with Arby's. That's some of the best humor that I've seen in the live chat in a long time. Okay, let's get back to the matter at hand. So you heard what Nick Saban said there. If you followed this story, you know he's just banged that drum forever. So it's not that he's upset. In fact, he's very much in favor. He'd love to go to 10 conference games. We're just going to 9. He'd love to go to 10 conference games. I think he just wants to even it out. I think he's looking down in the sand trap and saying, can someone get the rake over here? Can someone fill in where it looks like a child was just left alone to his own devices with his plastic shovel, just digging around in there? Can someone just run a rake through the schedule, even it out a little bit more? I think it would come as a surprise to some people, based on what I see as popular sentiment, that these coaches want to be more challenged. I don't think a lot of people believe that. Some of you may not believe that. Kirby's going to get challenged a whole lot more. Georgia's schedule is going to get beefed up per capita, I guess, more so than anyone else, because you don't get annuals with Kentucky and Vandy and Missouri every year anymore. You'll still play them, but you're going to play Texas and Oklahoma and Alabama every bit as often as you're going to play those other schools, depending on who your 3 permanents are. So these coaches, I think Dabo's the same way at Clemson. I don't think Dabo Swinney has enjoyed the cakewalk, relatively speaking, of course, that their conference schedule has been. It's like in Jurassic Park, when they first go on the tour and they can't get the T-Rex to come out. So what do? Samuel L. Jackson says, hold on, we're going to try and draw the T-Rex out. They just bring a goat up out of the ground. They had a goat waiting, a feeder goat, as Meemaw would call it. And they had a feeder goat waiting, and Sam Neill's sitting in the Explorer, and it's pouring down rain, and he's saying, T-Rex doesn't want to be fed. He wants to hunt. These guys don't want to be fed. They don't want to be favored by 55.5. They want to hunt. They want to be challenged. That's how competitors feel. I know, Nick Saban, not so different, he and I. I feel the same way on the pong table as Nick Saban does on the football field. And credit me for saying that with a straight face. This schedule, though, is going to be brutality. Have you really thought this through? Have you guys thought this through? Because, honestly, I didn't really dive deep in my own mind until today on it. It's pretty dangerous when I do that. I don't try to do it that often. We are approaching a world where we have an expanded playoff, right? And the SEC is going to play a 9-game conference schedule. They're adding OU in Texas, and whomstever else may join. Who knows what tomorrow may bring. And they're also going to have an SEC championship game. That's not going anywhere. It's worth too much money. And then you're going to do what? You're going to ask them to play an expanded playoff. I know that you don't think this is a video game. I know you guys understand that. But have we really stopped to think about how brutal these schedules are going to be? There are going to be years, for example, where someone is playing half a dozen, if not more, of the top 15 talent rosters in college football. Depending on your draw in any given year, you could legitimately have a season without me even knowing who you play out of conference. You could have a season where you play half a dozen or more of the top 15 talent rosters in the sport. So that means bigger, faster, stronger. That means the collisions matter more. That means the training table starts to accumulate and get more and more crowded week over week. That means you run out of athletic tape in week 8, and you got to reorder before the season's even up. Aside from the toll that takes just on the college football player's body, are we going to properly adjust strength of schedule? You know, Nick Saban said something else in that interview I didn't have time to replay for you. He said, I kind of like what college basketball does. Jesse, what's the ranking? Used to be RPI. What's the ranking now they use at the end of the year? Yeah, Ken Palm. Just as an example of understanding there's more to it than what your record is. You are not always what your record says you are. It's one of our great truths in college sports. It's not pro sports. Records can lie to you. They do all the time. And I just wonder if Tennessee sits there and they go 9-3, and their 3 losses are like to Georgia, Bama, and Texas or someone like that. Do we possess the ability, will the committee possess the ability to say, yeah, they may not be a top 4 seed. They didn't win the SEC. They didn't win their conference, but that is clearly one of the best teams in the country. We need to put them above some one-loss teams. Do we possess that ability? I'm saying we rhetorically. I know we do. I'm asking if the committee does. And it's not even an SEC thing. I'll say the same thing if Ohio State does this any given year. I'll say, not that the Pac-12 may be around long enough for me to even utter this sentence about them, but I would say the same thing regardless. I'm all about fairly determining strength of schedule. It's one thing I don't think we do in the sport, at least at a high enough level. But yeah, this SEC schedule is going to be a war zone. And it's going to be entertaining. We're winning, so I will golf clap on that front. We are winning. We are getting a more entertaining product. But wow, strength of schedule. It matters, kids. It matters. Learn how to calculate that thing.
Thanks for watching, guys. Don't leave yet. Don't leave yet. Make sure you like the video and please subscribe to the channel. Not just for me, that's how we keep this entire thing free.